My name is Eva Shortt, and I have a very interesting cultural heritage background. When people look at me, generally, they have no idea where I come from, and I always get messages like, oh, are you Greek? Oh, are you Italian? Actually, no, none of the above. So my mother's part of the family is Czech and Hungarian, and they escaped from Eastern Europe and they went to Israel after the Holocaust. And my father's family are actually Afghani Jews. So there aren't many of us out there, but in the 40s, I believe there was a big emigration out of Afghanistan into New York, Israel, California. And so my father's family moved to Israel, and that's where my parents met. They moved to Canada, and I was born in Israel. But yeah, so basically my cultural heritage is just a big, really interesting background that's informed my entire life. I've always considered myself to be an Israeli Canadian. I've struggled with the idea of being just Canadian, and I don't believe there is such a thing. And yeah, so I am Israeli Canadian with a really interesting mix behind me.
My ancestors originated from Manitoba, and they had a large family there. They had originally come from Barrow in Furness in northern England, and so my grandfather was born there, and he had 7 brothers and sisters. They all came over. They lived in a little town called Roundthwaite in Manitoba. I don't believe it's there any longer, but the cemetery is still there.
Well, heritage is where we came from, how much we know. For me, my relatives were both German background that brought us to Canada.
My family is a settler family. I have 2 parts. There's my Ukrainian side, which is where my last name Kardash comes from. And I also have an Irish side, which would be Wilkinson.
My name is Fernando. I'm coming from Mexico. My state name is Yucatan. It's a very rich cultural history. And now I'm here with a group of friends, all faculty for different schools, to study a workshop in electronics from the Sax Polytech. We're going to be here 2 months, learning about all the cultural traditions and all the relation between our countries. We are here to study and to learn about the different cultures and the different ways to live the life. We are very close with our cultural roots, so we are very hope to learn more about yourself, about your different original nations, and for us would be a great experience to be here.
I'm from the Igbo tribe of Nigeria. We speak the Igbo language. So you talked about culture. What does culture mean to me? In Igbo land, culture is one of the greatest things they hold at heart, especially when it comes to the language, when it comes to the food, when it comes to our dressing. So in Igbo land, these are the 3 major things that represent our culture, our language, our food, and our dressing.
My name is Tony Reyes. I come from Lebanon. I've been in Saskatoon 2 months already. And regarding my cultural heritage, in Lebanon we have so many cultures, so many religions, around 18 religions, so which is something that we learn how to live in harmony all together and to accept each other.
Bonjour, mon nom est Leslie. My name is Leslie and I come from France. I am the first immigrant in my family. I arrived in Canada, Regina, Saskatchewan, 8 years ago as a worker, just economic reason. That's why I came. To me, my heritage from France means, I would say, understanding. So people can actually understand who you are when you are able to talk about your country and your roots. I would say that because even if like when you start a job, sometimes the way you work can be very weird or strange for some, I don't know, I would say native Canadian people. So it's interesting to bring something, but actually it's also important for people to understand what we bring here and why we do things like we do. But at the same time, it's interesting for us to adjust ourselves, right? It's interesting to explore different ways to work and like get a different vision of things. So actually what I became is a mix. I'm a mix of Canada, France. I don't know if I will ever feel French or Canadian. I see myself as a traveler, as I don't know if I will ever have my suitcases in one country or one city and I will stay forever. And I think that's great because that's rich, right?
My family is in general mostly from a British heritage, sometimes through quite a few generations, going back in fact as far as the Mayflower on one side of the family, which is very interesting and something. So we think that we've been in Canada a long time, but we also know that this country has been here much longer than us. And from children, we were definitely taught that we were not the First Nations here, but we had something to offer.
I'm Hutterite, I'm Hutterish, and my grandparents, and back in the United States, they never were in a colony. The reason why they got into the United States, they moved from Europe, and they moved to the United States, and then they moved up from South Dakota into Saskatchewan, independent farmers though, dairy farmers, grain farmers, and cattle farmers. And so that's how that happened. Like my mom and dad never was in a colony. They had a dairy farm. Actually, I was born in 1941, so a dairy farm back in about 1945 in Canada would have been about 30 cows, 28 cows. That's a major dairy farm. So that's how I was brought up. Of course, we didn't have any electricity, and so I never got involved in milking cows until when I was about 8 or 9. By that time, we had a gasoline engine in there pumping up air so we could milk the cows or making a vacuum. Anyhow, and what was the other question? The Hutterish people were quite God-fearing people, and they believed in Jesus and God. And when they moved up to Saskatchewan, they got together in homes to have meetings, and then they built the church in the Langham area, and we just celebrated the 110th year in that church. So in that church, they remodified it a bit. The government helped with that too, a fund, and they rebuilt that church, and it's functioning today. And so there's a group of community still goes to that church right now, every Sunday, and they have prayer meetings on Wednesday. But anyhow, that's a little history, and so that's where we went to church. We lived on the farm. We went to church every Sunday. It was 7 miles one way, and I remember going with my mom and dad in a Model 8, and we go to church. So, and that mom was very, very strict about that.
I just think that we need to open up our doors. We need to bring in all we can, have a lovely little melting pot of a big community, and just keep on growing our country and make it a greater country, because somebody gave my relatives a chance. So I just think we should give others a chance. And, you know, your heritage can still thrive, and you can still make your pierogies and borscht and stuff, but you can also enjoy the hamburger and fries at your local Canadian diner.
So it's interesting that one side of my family really wanted to distance themselves from their heritage, because long ago Ukraine was seen as a less than kind of place. And so my great-grandma wanted to lose her accent and worked very, very hard to make sure that my grandpa and his sister, my great-aunt, were brought up in a very English education. So I feel kind of sad that that part was lost. we're just regaining it a little bit, and one of my aunts has taken classes in Ukrainian language, but then the other side embraced their heritage so much. My Irish side had a shillelagh over the door, and it was more talked about. We ate a lot of the foods. Actually, Ukrainian side also did. We ate a lot of pierogies, but yeah, it had just started to be reintroduced more.
I born in Yucatan. Yucatan is a very strange relation with the Mayan pre-Hispanic culture. And my father is from one small town called Teco, and my mother is from another little town between Chichen Itza and Valladolid city. So it's so funny because I don't look like a Mexican. They always say, "You are so tall. Where are you from?" But my grandfather, for the side of my father, he was from Belize. So I am a kind of mix of different cultures here. But Mexico, it's a very rich region with different culture and I don't know how to pronounce, with a rich roots from the pre-Hispanic culture. So we are so proud of those.
What I would like to mention as well is that what I found here was also the Francophone community, the Francescois. So it's a mix of generations of Francescois. You have the Francescois, so the Francophone from Saskatchewan, and you have also a mix with the Québécois and people from New Brunswick and the Franco-Ontariens and Franco-Albertans. So we're like, it's a melting pot of Francophonie. So that actually opened my mind of, you know, when you come from France, you're just like, okay, we're the people who speak French, right? We know that in Africa, some people speak French as well because of the colonialism, but you don't expect as much people to you know, as many people to like speak French actually in another country like Canada. So I would say that the Francophone are today like a second family because I have close friends and we are all going to the same events and we can all talk about the same things and experiences or different experiences, but like in some way, we have a link. Even if they are Francophone from Canada or Francophone like out of Canada, it's like just a big family. And I'm so glad. And my family in France, my mom is reassured by that because she said, okay, I know you're not alone.
Because in Canada there is a lot of immigrants, so a lot of culture to learn about. Plus I teach languages, so I learned about, I know Italian and Spanish, and you know, there is a lot of countries who talks Spanish and Italian, so I learned their culture too, so which helped me to be a multicultural person and learn to accept and to get in touch with all other cultures.
It means that we try to live lightly on the land, and we try to be part of the solution, not part of the problem when we see things happening.
I will go with the Metis. You know, the Metis, they kind of have we are kind of related in terms of when we look at the wind. I see them, they see the wind, the water and all that. They relate it with their gods. You know, it's kind of related to where I'm coming from because we see the water, the wind and everything like is kind of a god to us. And like the planting season, we pray to the river goddess to help us, you know, to harvest our planting season so that we will have a bounty, how will I call it, a bounty harvest. So we look up to the gods of the river, the gods of the sun, the gods of, you know, so many gods that we have there. So I see that in the Betis too, because I have been in one of the cultural conversation and we had the Metis talk to us. I'm like, yeah, I relate to you with that. So we have kind of similar cultural relationship, I would say, with the Metis. So it's kind of the heritage I see with us.
Well, both sides of my family had to struggle quite a bit because, of course, you know, they lived in sod houses and all of that kind of thing. So, I mean, I can see that hard work was very important on both sides, and that's something that has been handed down. I don't know, I do struggle with being a settler a little bit because, of course, I'm living on borrowed land. And yeah, it's been an interesting time to, come to self-realizations, So I'm both proud of where I've come from, because my Irish side, my Ukrainian side, they did work hard, but at the same time, they didn't know, but this was someone else's land too.